Hello and welcome. Anyone still clinging to the irrational belief that government is genuinely looking after the well-being of the public? Well, they should take a closer look at the recent frantic endeavours to further tighten stranglehold tyranny. For many decades, the case against water fluoridation is comprehensively proven beyond all reasonable doubt. As with the ecocide of fracking, a massive body of peer-reviewed science condemns it as a crime against humanity. Globally, experts condemn water fluoridation since it's never once demonstrated the touted benefits or shown to have been even remotely advantageous to dental welfare. Now, the decision makers know this, yet in contemptuous disregard of community objections, they persist with their unlawful agenda of enforced mass medication. The firmly established science is readily available to all of those taking part in this wrongful decision-making process. Injurious health effects caused by ingesting the toxic industrial waste, rat poison of fluoride are comprehensively documented and fully understood. This incontestable proof is still ignored by the criminal factions seeking to poison communities with this noxious industrial byproduct that also negatively affects and impacts wildlife and the environment upon many levels. This criminality will no longer be tolerated, and we herein make abundantly clear that those responsible for inflicting this malicious poisoning, an unlawful act of forced mass medication that is in clear breach of the Nuremberg Accords, will be fully held to account. Nazi doctors were sentenced to death and promptly hanged for perpetrating this exact same crime. The newly formed International Tribunal into Natural Justice is currently investigating this situation. However, in the meantime, robust private criminal prosecutions will be enjoined by groups and individuals vehemently opposed to having toxic fluoride polluting public drinking water. Medical experts firmly denounce mass medication of water fluoridation, citing the fact that fluoride is a toxic drug wherein mass application is unforgivably reckless since no control exists over the amounts ingested. In countries around the world, communities are exponentially coming together in fierce resistance to water fluoridation, uniformly voting to outlaw it for good and all time. Poisoning public water is a criminal act. An ever-increasing number of reliable studies demonstrating that fluoride is associated with IQ reduction, even at low levels. It's unforgivable to expose babies to up to 300 times more fluoride than is naturally present in mother's milk. It's equally unforgivable to use the public water supply for the purpose of mass medication, which violates individuals' rights to informed consent to unsought, unwanted and illegally enforced medical treatment. Accordingly, proponents of fluoride are viewed with mounting disdain and intense revulsion. Anyone promoting a Nazi style of mass medication that demonstrably reduces children's IQs and puts them at risk of suffering brittle bones, thyroid problems, and potentially crippling arthritis is the worst type of sociopath imaginable. But who among our so-called leaders will rise up and challenge them? The individuals elected to public office as political representatives, that is, representatives of the community who elected them, conveniently ignore the fact that constitutionally the foundation of government and law has always been and forever remains the people themselves. The primary function of elected government is to serve the people by administering public services. Never once have elected representatives been invested with the authority to dictate policy that is unwanted and fiercely rejected by the public. These salient facts are ignored by an increasingly dictatorial corporatocracy that has perverted governance into a means of plunder. These robotic, unfeeling, satanic, socio-psychopathic politicians have convinced themselves that they are above the law. They have long since abandoned authentic service to the public, the actual job they are elected to perform and paid by public money to perform, in order to accommodate the rapacious greed and environmental vandalism of criminal corporations. Yet still, they bury their snouts deep into the tax trough, enjoying million-dollar pensions paid by us. And for doing what? For looking after criminal corporations at the expense of the public. This cancerous plague of systemic corruption has spread from government to terminally infect the entire justice system. It stems from the ingrained criminal influence of international central banking. Clearly, it will be incorrect to assert that all of those in government are personally guilty of wrongdoing. However, when governments do nothing but dictate, oppress, and act directly against the well-being of the public, then those in its employ should more carefully consider their positions and their responsibilities, most especially in the arena of rampant human rights abuse. Eventually, multiple criminal actions will be launched against government offenders, including the utterly loathsome TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, whose crimes against humanity rival those of history's worst mass murderers and torturers. This thoroughly evil department deliberately suppresses natural, cheap and effective cancer cures that have been readily available for decades. These many proven remedies could have and certainly should have saved millions from needless suffering and avoidable death inflicted by the barbaric slash, poison and burn techniques imposed by the medical mafia. Countless documentaries and case histories upheld by compelling witness testimony establish the case against the murderous TGA beyond question. Funded by the very drug companies they are supposed to regulate, their ongoing criminality extends to the viciously inhumane, genocidal medical fraud of vaccinations. As with the aforementioned government crimes, communities around the world are exponentially gathering force for meaningful justice. And here in Australia, the TGA ranks uppermost on the wanted for crimes against humanity list. Unfortunately, the deep-seated corruption controlling the courts and judiciary precludes progress in this particular effort. But it's only a matter of time before authentic justice is restored to its rightful throne. Existing corruption is rigidly enforced by means of blackmail, financial manipulation, and all manner of criminal coercion upon judges and court administrators, who are subsequently compelled to do the bidding of satanic overlords. Rampant pedophilia and the threat of compromising sexual scandal has proven the most useful tool in the arsenal of evildoers. But, pursuant to the cumulative and ever-growing influence of citizen journalism, censorship hitherto obscuring this obscene world becomes increasingly threadbare and transparent. Rising head and shoulders above this vile vanguard of villainy emerges mainstream media, who, in tandem with their pathetically absurd narrative, continually loses credibility. Critical thinkers now turn to alternate, independent citizen media sources, providing factual accounts, reliable social commentary, and truthful investigation. Mainstream media's absolute betrayal of authentic journalism became glaringly apparent with the advent of 9/11 and its subsequent illegal wars of invasion and occupation of sovereign nations. All the salient facts, truthful investigation and reliable testimony were ruthlessly crushed beneath the corporate war machine's obvious agenda. Those with journalistic integrity were made to either abandon their principles or face immediate unemployment. The few demonstrating personal courage and reporting veracity enough to attempt an honest and truthful account were immediately denounced as unpatriotic, subjected to ridicule, and quickly swept aside. All remaining within the dark heart of mainstream media were fully aware of the gross perversion of truth that they had become an integral part of. Yet few realise the price they will ultimately pay for such far-reaching and consequential betrayal. Even now, it's doubtful leading reporters and senior editorial staff fully understand the extent of their culpability in war crimes and crimes against humanity. However, without their blind, unquestioning assistance, effectively dancing cheerleaders for the war machine, the millions of innocents brutally destroyed in the subsequent conflagrations would have been spared. The infrastructure and viability of those sovereign nations would have remained intact and their populations left to thrive had responsible media personnel demonstrated the courage and journalistic integrity to stand by truth instead of selling out to satanic warmongers. Here the media barons and their minions are complicit in war crimes and multiple crimes against humanity for having deceived the public, and without questioning the political justification, they paved the way for manifestly illegal warfare. Now, whether they choose to admit it or not is irrelevant, because the spotlight of truth draws them inexorably forward to justice. Certain TV channels forever disgustingly wallow in the degradation of war, screening unrelenting death and destruction at every given opportunity. Their carefully orchestrated perception management, disguised as news, ladles out undiluted depravity that in reality is a sewer pipe gushing its daily calculated measure of filth into your living room. Don't watch it, don't read it, don't listen to it, don't listen to them ever. This world would be improved beyond measure if a truthful mainstream media did what it's supposed to do and expose the crimes of Big Pharma, the illegality of the medical mafia, and the illegal suppression of clean, non-polluting propulsion and energy technologies. Cancer would have been relegated to the history books as far back as the 1930s, along with the multitude of managed diseases that profit criminals. Poverty and manufactured want would have also been done away with if the capacity for truthful reporting existed in mainstream media. It does not and has not for many decades. The turbulent times ahead present many challenges wherein this cosmic battle is set to escalate and intensify. But with that in mind, it's useful to consider what happens when a lighted candle goes forth into the darkest dungeon. No matter how small the candle or unsteady the flame, the darkness flees at once. It has no option other than to retreat before the light. And as the light of truth grows ever stronger throughout the world, seeping into every nook and cranny and far-flung corner hidden in shadow, the servants of evil shrink back towards inevitable defeat. Their time is at hand and happy. This means so too is our